Viewers, thank you for joining us on this episode. This is another episode on Project Appraiser, and we have interesting topic to discuss today. My name is Olalekan Aboderin. I'm an essay surveyor and valuer. I have the privilege of being the lead advisor of Olalekan Aboderin Consulting, a firm of essay surveying and valuation in Nigeria. And I have the privilege of being the CEO and Director of Studies of RIS Academy. This presentation is on the platform of RES Publication. RES Publication means Real Estate Services and Transactions, and it's a subsidiary of RIS Academy. So you are welcome on board. If it's your first time, this is where we discuss issues about real estate generally, real estate ideas, real estate projects, real estate investments, and what people should know about real estate so that we can optimize our gain. We can ensure that our capital performs and that we can, of course, minimize our risk. So you are welcome on board. Today, our topic is basically on what we call feasibility. We want to continue our discussion on feasibility of projects. And this is part of what we call project appraiser, which ordinarily is supposed to be part of or content in what we call business case for a project. And business case is required, as we would have noticed or listened to in our past episode, is required for proper project initiation. So now we have discussed about project feasibility as having two perspectives, the market feasibility, which we have discussed extensively in the last two episodes. And now the non-market feasibility that we will start discussion on today. Apart from all factors that we consider under market feasibility, all other factors or considerations that could affect project delivery come under what we call non-market feasibility. Market feasibility basically is like economic analysis, which we have discussed at length in our last two episodes. So non-market feasibility focuses on other factors that can make or mar projects in terms of realization of it or actualization of the project, both within the internal environment of the project or the external environment, from internal stakeholders or even external stakeholders. So what do we have to consider under market feasibility? For example, there could be a question of legality, legal implications of embarking on a project. This aspect of legality talks about what we call, therefore, what? Legal feasibility. We'll pick them one by one. But let me have a run off. In the first instance, we have legal feasibility. We have what we call physical feasibility. We have what we call financial feasibility. We have technological feasibility, and we have socio-political feasibility. All these are classes of considerations that must be made if we want to assess what we call non-market feasibility. Now, what do we mean by legal feasibility? What legal feasibility centers on legal issues or framework that can make or mar the projects. Legal issues or framework that are supportive of the project or that prohibit the project delivery. These are what we consider under legal feasibility. Now, this issue of legal feasibility, to bring it down to our level and for us to be able to draw meaningful take-home from it, you have to consider what's the legal environment around the project. 2, what's the legal framework? What are government policies? What is the position of the law regarding the project idea? All these are what we have to consider and analyze to achieve legal feasibility. One of such is what we call the title of the project, of the site of the project itself. The title of the site of the project itself must be supportive of the project idea. One is, does the site have a secured or registered title? If it has a registered title, fantastic. That's good enough. Very supportive of the project. 2, what is the tenure in the title? Is the tenure long enough to make the project feasible? If it is not long enough, it means that project is not feasible, legally speaking, from the perspective of title. 3, Is there transferability? Right from the title again. Is there transferability? With the nature of the title, is it transferable? If it is transferable, particularly for a project that is meant for market consumption, it must be transferable. If it's not transferable, then from the perspective of title, again, it's not legally feasible. 4, what are other tenor conditions that relate to the title? For example, you might be thinking of maybe 6 household units. The tenor condition might say just 2 household units. For example, the tenor condition might attach special financial obligations to the land holding, which ordinarily might make your project to be prohibitive. All these are issues around the title, which must be analyzed properly before going ahead. I give you an example. Particularly, this can happen in the case of JV. As a promoter of a project or a developer, you want to do a joint venture project, and the family or the owner of the title or even maybe government agency is saying we can only give you 25 years tenure. We give you 25 years investment period, after which the property will refer to the local government. And you want to do residential building, I can tell you it will not sell. If it's commercial, shops and the like, yeah, you can still have place for that in the market. But when it is residential and the tenure for your JV period is just 25 years, it will not sell. So that means, legally speaking, from legal perspective, it's not a feasible project, right from title perspective, from point of view. So that is like an example. Similar thing happened in the Ikeja area here some years ago, where an investor did a JV with a government, with an MDH, I don't want to mention the name, and the investor was just given 25 years period for the JV, and he built terrace houses for sale. I tell you, when they were unable to sell, at the end of the day, they have to convert to letting, because they were losing money continuously. Void was eating deep down the investment. So we must pay attention to even the tenure. How long does the title have as unexpired term? Or what is the investment period or agreed period between parties? This is very, very important and comes under legal feasibility when analyzing the title to the land. Here we are talking about title and tenure. Again, now after that, still under legal feasibility is what we call land use zoning. Now this relates to the location where the site of the project situates. What is the zoning, the land use zoning of that location or of that particular site? You are thinking of regional mall, whereas the zoning is agricultural. You better don't dare it, because it's not going to be feasible. You won't be able to get planning approval. And where you are unable to get planning approval, it then means that it's not feasible legally. Or that you want to do commercial, but it's residential. So the land use zoning is very, very important. Again, still under approval or approvability, it's a question of the intensity of development, approval order in that location. How many units are you allowed or permitted to develop? If you are permitted to just do, let's say, for example, maximum of 4 floors, and you are already thinking of 6 floors, you should know it's not feasible. And that will impact not only your feasibility, but it's only going to impact your viability. As a matter of fact, the moment it's not feasible, you don't even have to bother yourself to go into viability. So, legal feasibility, in terms of approvability, will you be able to realize planning approval? The moment you are unable to realize planning approval for one reason or the other, in terms of non-compliance to zoning or non-compliance to planning order, then it will not. It means that the project is not legally feasible. Legal feasibility. This is very, very important. Again, still under this legal feasibility, you can have government policy in an area, for example, and that will actually be absorbed in approval order, actually. There are areas where certain heights are prohibited. You are not allowed to go there. Again, under legal feasibility, this is from experience, very, very important, is what I call issue of third-party claim. Issue of third-party claim under legal feasibility is such that, for example, it's common in urban area where you want to have what we call brownfield development. Where you want to have brownfield development. It's very, very common when it is not a greenfield development. That's where third-party claim can really be a serious issue. It does not mean that it cannot happen even under greenfield. Third-party claim is a situation where there is a third party that has claim to the land or part of the land or an issue in relation thereto. That's third-party claim. So in the case of a third-party claim where it is a brownfield, take for example where you want to redevelop a location or you want to redevelop a market. You already have existing occupier of the market. There are third parties that have claim to that market. In some cases, they might even have built structures with their money on their own. So, dislodging them to redevelop that kind of market or site will have an issue of third-party claim. The least of it could be a kind of the compensation that they will require, so as to be settled out of that and for them to live, so that the land can now be accessible and available for the development. Where such is not available, then there will be a problem. Where the proposal does not take to cognizance the third-party claim, then by the time the project is to start, there will be a problem because access to that land will be hindered. So another important one about legal feasibility, again, is what we call land accessibility. Land accessibility here is talking about access, affordability in terms of accessing the land, how affordable. Again, it's equally talking about how affordable is it to get title, land titling, the procedure of getting the title, the cost of getting the title, how easy it is to get the title, to procure the title, and at what cost. These come under land accessibility. How easy is it to get the land allocation or to get the land to purchase, and at what cost? So that's affordability. Then the titling aspect of it, either in terms of secondary transaction or primary transaction, how easy is it to get the title to land? All these come under land accessibility. They are considerations to be made, things to analyze and review, and draw inferences and conclusions from to assess what we call legal feasibility. On this note, we'll go on short break. Please don't go away, viewers. We'll continue after this short break. Welcome back. Before that short break, we dealt extensively on what we call legal feasibility. And I think I rounded up that legal feasibility with the aspect of third-party claim and why it's important to take into cognizance what could be third-party claim and how such could affect the project performance, the delivery, the realization of the project. Again, it's more pronounced when it is in the case of brownfield development. Sorry, what do we mean by brownfield development here? We mean where you need to redevelop an already developed area. The terrain has already changed. It's already a developed area. Maybe it's now a blight or a slum, or that there is need to redevelop, to reconfigure the entire place. Then we call that brownfield development. It is greenfield where you just want to open up a fresh, undeveloped land. It might still be at the heart of the town, but it has never been developed before. So it's not being redeveloped. You are just starting or developing it now. Then in that wise, it's a greenfield. With such greenfield does not mean you cannot have third-party claim too. You can have. There's so many. Okay, let me give you an example in that regard. Consider a parcel of land that have been concessioned to a concessionaire, and it's a greenfield development. But the concessionaire, for whatever reason, has not been able to proceed speedily, and the owner of the land feels that no, he could not continue to wait, so therefore he wants you or another developer to come on board. There is a third-party claim there. We need to be sure that his right, that concessionaire's right to that land, have been properly terminated before you proceed. Otherwise, it could be an issue. It can stall the project. Legally speaking, it could constitute hindrance. So that is even greenfield. So it's a case, or probably it can even happen at the other side. They just signed with a concessionaire and they now realize that they have a better deal with another concessionaire, and they want you, being another concessionaire with a better deal, they want you to come on board. You must know the stake of that third party and ensure that the agreement is properly terminated. Otherwise, there might be issue. So there are a series of examples that can lead to third-party claim. And everything will relate to one legal issue or the other, or issue that even emanate from title. Okay? So, as developers or as investors, we need to pay attention to that. Legal feasibility is important, and it must be feasible legally before you proceed. Otherwise, my advice is don't go ahead. Of course, your professional that would have done the analysis would have been able to show you that it's not legally feasible. I give you an example about third-party claim. There was a market that was to be redeveloped here in Lagos, and we were privileged to prepare the business case. In the course of preparing the business case, we realized that the market is completely occupied. So visiting the place, we realized that there is third-party claim to be addressed. So we brought it to the attention of the promoter and partly the financier. I tell you, one of the major reasons why the project concepts have not seen the light of the day till today, about 5 or 6 years now, is this issue of third-party claim. Because you cannot imagine what would be their demand in terms of compensation. In most cases, local governments or SCDA will tell you, or state government will tell you that it's state land. Yes, it's state land. But there are already some settlers on the land as marketers. You cannot just dislodge them. And where it is feasible to dislodge them, just be sure that you investigate that and you carry out your analysis properly. So that is an example that we have personally witnessed in the course of having to come up with legal assessment of legal feasibility. Now, apart from legal feasibility, another important consideration under what we call non-market feasibility is physical feasibility. We must assess the physical feasibility of the project. This physical feasibility often centers around the sites and location of the project. Physical feasibility often centers around the sites and the location of the project. For example, what's the size of the land? Is it supportive of the project idea? And will it be able to attract approval? What is the terrain? How slopey is the land? Is it of relatively plain terrain? Or does it slope backward slope to the road? How steep is the slope? In some cases, the steepness of the slope can prohibit the development, will make the development prohibitive. Again, the direction of the slope, if it slopes backward, it will attract serious costs, and that can hinder the delivery or the realization of the project. Because don't forget that you have to drain your site to the road. So where your site slopes backward, particularly when you are talking about pocket lands, like 1 or 2 or 3 plots like that, and you have a steep slope backward of the site, it will cost a lot. Not only will it require filling for you to divert and redirect the direction of flow to the road, to the drainage along the side of the road, you equally need special type of foundation to ensure structural stability of your building. So the terrain is equally important. These are part of physical factors or indicators we analyze under physical feasibility. Again, still under physical feasibility, we consider the texture, and that is where is your firm, the nature of the soil. Is the land of firm, is it of firm ground, loamy, loose soil, or is it waterlogged? All these will impact on what we call your assessment of physical feasibility. Beyond that too, availability of public utilities, accessibility to the site itself come under assessment of physical feasibility. Where the site is not accessible, then what is the cost of making the site accessible? The cost alone might kill the project idea, or might make the project idea to be non-performing anymore. Or where it does not have access to public utilities, and you have to procure all this on your own at your costs. Let me give you an example of a project at the heart of Mayhem land here. I don't want to mention the location. Government was doing a road that's supposed to be like a link road between two other major roads, and is like providing direct access to the site, and government abandoned that road as at that time. So we were privileged to handle the business case, and we identified that road as key success factor. The road must be done and must be motorable, and there is a very big canal that requires to have a culvert, or if it's not, a small bridge. So we identified that, but it was abandoned. Now the implication is that without that road, the site is not accessible. Okay, the next challenge is that the cost of completing or making the road, putting the culvert or the bridge, was prohibitive to the project because it gobbled up the entire profits, and the project could not support constructing the road or making the road vehicle likely, that is motorable. So that alone hindered the realization of that project. So it's very important to consider all these under physical feasibility. Again, beyond that too, with our physical feasibility, there are other issues like the nature of adjoining use, like the weather condition, fertility, and so on and so forth. I think for question of time, we will continue our discussion on this physical feasibility in our next episode, where we equally focus on all other feasibility assessments. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.